14 weeks, indeed. After this, after going for around January 10th, they'll break off for 14 weeks. Those are the holidays. Then they will go back around the 9th of May. Then they'll break off around the 12th of August this same year. Then they'll go back around the 5th of September, and then they come back home. That is for the third term, around December 9th in that regard. So that is the latest pertaining the full reopening of the education institutions. I still do have in the studio joining me, that is Asha Wilson Owere, the Chairman General for the National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTU, and he's here to talk about access to the NSSF money and also workers' rights in that regard. It fits in that docket. The same conversation Rashula Didi was talking about, the fact that there is meager funding for the full reopening in that regard. Private institutions are only receiving 100,000 Uganda shillings. Asha Wilson already. Now imagine if I've been under lock and key and I'm not working for the last 2 years, and then they say, here's 100,000 Uganda shillings. Mr. Romy Busi could help you, come back into the school setting. Ideally, is this really enough money for the workers, for the teachers to get back into the school system?
There's a lot of problems, especially for schools which are going to start. I own a school myself, and what my wife has been going through, trying to reset the school back, need a lot of money. Now, when you talk about 100,000, what will it even do? That is just even because most schools, some schools have even developed anthill in the classroom. You saw it.
Yes.
And most of the schools are really in a sorry state. So there's needs a lot of funding, and it's going to affect the. But anyway, there's a lot of firefighting in some of these institutions, which is not good. Time has come when we must organize ourselves and make sure that we do things in the right way. Because education system is one of the things that we must be more organized. Because if you don't organize yourself at education sector, then there's a problem.
I was looking at the national budget, 44 trillion Uganda shillings, and I was like, how is it possible that we have striking interns, we have professors, lecturers within the universities who are saying, yes, come 2022, we are also going to be joining the lot of people who are going to be striking. And I'm like, why isn't the government prioritizing education and health in that regard when we have a whooping 44 trillion Uganda shillings? Where is this money going?
No,
Aren't we interested in working on the welfare of the workers?
The problem is in public service, the workers who work for government, they sat down and they negotiated with the government. There's a negotiation machinery, but it's still being watered down. And these are some of the problems that some of the institutions that should be helping government to strengthen its mandate is being fought, sometimes deliberately, to cause confusion, so that people do things in a way they want and start firefighting. Once you start firefighting, there's a room for corruption and so on. There's a collective bargaining agreement which was signed by government and its workers through the public service unions. And that collective bargaining agreement is the precursor, something that is supposed to be used for government to be able to pay its workers. And we had structured it in a way that within a period of 5 years, you implement it in phases. And it was even looking at even the science teachers, the doctors, and so on, like the president. But somebody somehow came out with the idea that they started picking items from what was already agreed on and implementing it in piecemeal. Now, that one has created confusion within the workforce. That's why you see there's a lot of strikes and infighting where the people are competing and saying, if I also go, I will be given. That kind of thing. And yet we had settled that. Industrial relations.
So as some people strike, others are being sorted out. That's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that in industrial relations, there's what we call industrial peace.
I see.
There can only be industrial peace where there's negotiations, there's good industrial relations between employer and employee.
Indeed.
Now, it is structured in a way that International Labour Organization mandates the employer, the employee, and government to work as a tripartite. Now, when you work as a tripartite, you sit down and agree on how you are going to manage the system of employment. Now, in that way, once you sit and agree on something, you implement that. You go outside it, then you start zigzagging. It's like a vehicle. When you are driving, you have a mirror, you have what? If any of them is disorganized, how do you drive the car? So the biggest problem is disorganization within government is caused by government officials because they neglect what has been put in place. Now, you create another structure within a structure. Now it creates more problem. So that's the thing you are seeing. Today is the doctors, the other day nurses, and so on, the laboratories and so on. And yet, a system was put in place, a collective bargaining agreement was put there, signed by the head of public service and the workers' union within the framework of public service. And me, I want to urge the Parliament of Uganda to be very, very strong on this and ask the government to come back to the drawing board and implement the collective bargaining agreement. And that will be the best way how employment in this country will be handled without any hassle.
Before we get into midterm access, when it comes to NSSF, let's talk about workers' rights as a whole. You do have the National Drug Authority that is saying, well, if you haven't been vaccinated, there's no chance for you to be accessing our premises. It does not matter if you are one of our employees or you're just visiting the premises to talk to someone at the NDA. The Minister of Finance is also saying the same. If you're not vaccinated, please do not step on our premises. And also the teachers are being warned, if you haven't been vaccinated, there's no way you're going to be making your way back into the school system. Let's talk about workers' rights as a whole and the vaccine mandates.
You know, I think you are confusing workers' rights with the... Workers' rights is to prevent you from dying. Now,
while you're working.
While you are working. Now, if you become a danger to others, it does not tantamount to workers' right. If you know that you are going to infect people with the deadly disease, because we are fighting unseen war.
That is the same position of the United Nations.
Yes, we are fighting the unseen war. Now, this unseen war is urging you to be healthy and make sure you are alive and you are not a danger to other people. So by telling you not to come, why don't you go for vaccination? So it's very simple. So the rights, you know, sometimes we talk about rights, but you must know that your rights should not hamper other people's rights. If you're one person and you are going to kill maybe 100 people, because one person can affect the whole of this studio of yours and the whole workforce here, what will happen? So and instead of it's tampering in other people's lives, they rather tell you, you first stay there and do what is required, and then you come back.
And of course, the United Nations Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet recently came out and said, as long as, yes, if someone is going to be infecting others, their rights can be conditioned in that regard. Exactly. So if you are not, you know, getting vaccinated, or you don't want to be vaccinated and you're going to be endangering others, you can actually be blocked in that regard. All right, so let's talk about midterm access. Many people have been clamoring, the parents themselves are saying, if I had access to this money, I would be crying about school fees in that regard. The teachers who are being given 100,000 Uganda shillings, many of whom could be 45 years and have been working for more than 10 years, they could be eligible for this money, are saying if this money had been, you know, already available before, yes, the full reopening, it would have gone a long way in helping them alleviate many of the challenges that have befallen them. But on the issue of access to this money, what does it mean for the workers?
First of all, Usiko, I'm telling you, I'm very excited.
Indeed. You've been fighting. I've been seeing you, Wilson.
From yesterday, I even changed my walking style because you don't know how.
Dance.
Yeah, you don't know how I feel, but I feel so good.
I can tell.
And I first of all want to thank the president for ascending to this bill. Because without his assignment, it was going to be a useless paper.
Indeed.
And on the same way, I also want to thank the speakers, both the former speaker and the current speaker. Busiko, you know that this bill was passed in the 10th Parliament.
Indeed.
Now, when the 11th Parliament came,
shoved.
They said, no, the time has gone. And then what do we do? We stormed the Olanya's office. Went there without any appointment. And that time I was ready to fight.
I see.
Yes.
I can read a picture.
When the speaker saw me, he said, this already now, I don't know.
Indeed.
But with the our members of parliament who are representing workers, we agreed and said, okay, let's start afresh. We start from the scratch. And we agreed, he told us, I'm going to fast track this bill and make sure that it becomes a bill within the shortest time.
What were the new changes made?
There was no new changes made, but...
because initially, if you had been working for some 10 years, but if you were not actually 45, you could access the money. That was the initial plan.
Yeah, the
I've
initial
been working
plan,
10 years, I'm not 45,
the
wrongly to say I could access the
Parliament put their rider, which was a bit dangerous, because it was saying it was like everybody should get. And when you talk of everybody, that means it's like the whole amount of money will be wiped away
15
from.
trillion.
Yeah.
15 to 17
and
trillion.
Our main agenda for making this a reality was when you clock 45 years, you have saved for 10 years. Especially, you know, life starts at 45. You are not yet 45, you know.
Only 30, Miss Oweri.
But life starts at 45.
But people like me, Miss Oweri, were locked out.
You are not locked out.
I've been working since 2011. I have some 11 years of experience. And people like me would have been eligible for the first, deal that had been made in the 10th Parliament to access this money. You've been working more than 10 years, but you're not 45. Don't you think so many people have been locked out?
Actually, you are not locked out. You are even lucky. You will get that money at the right time.
In 15 years.
When you have reached maturity and when life has started really.
I see.
You know, life starts at 45. When you are still at that time, you still think like a student, but at 45, now you start thinking straight.
Indeed.
Now, this particular money is supposed to help you start up something and benefit out of it. Then after 10 years, when you get everything, you have started something and you just add on. I'll give you an example. With me, I worked with the Civil Aviation Authority.
All right.
One of the best organizations. I made it one of the best because it's one of the most paying organizations. Because I fought for the workers and I made sure the condition of work there before I left was...
But since you left, corruption has been eating the whole organization.
That's a
story for another day.
For another day.
Indeed.
But what we envisaged is that when you start something, because at that time we had our own provident fund, but when we saw that there was a clamoring to kind of liberalize, we said, no, these guys are targeting our money.
I see.
By the way, we fought very hard to make sure NSSF is not liberalized. And that's when we came up with this idea. People were saying, but why should my money be there up to when I'm 55? I don't even see the money. I have a lot of problem. We said, no, let's now plan and have a midterm access. And that's when we started planning for this.
So it was never for COVID-19?
No. It was never. But COVID helped us to lobby and also promote it. You know, once you have something, you position yourself in order to make things move in that direction. But the our initial plan was to make sure at least you access, and then at 45, early access of your money, you start something.
Indeed.
By the time you reach 55 and you get your whole amount of money, you are able to just add on.
So those who have been working for 10 years and are not 45 years of age are not eligible, but those who are persons with disabilities and have been working for 10 years and are 40 years are eligible for this money. Who
Yes.
else is eligible, and what other changes were made?
The changes which were made was also because initially there was an issue of having dual management and what
Finance and gender labor.
and gender labor. So what we did was finance will have issue to do with the investment and so on.
Where
and
is the money going?
Yeah. Then the gender will look at the human aspect of it.
The design of the program.
The social aspect of the money will be with the gender, and the finance will be with the Minister of Finance.
Indeed.
And but most of the supervision now will be under Minister of Gender. And that has been my dream, that let this come back to the original ministry where we have a say. And the other place, actually it was like the World Bank was eyeing the money and they wanted to destroy it, and we said, no, this cannot work.
How was the World Bank eyeing the money?
No, but you know, the interest of World Bank and the Africa is not the same. They will never want to see any money within the economy.
You don't say.
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to help us.
No. You know, those are your politics out of. But with us workers, we know what it means.
Okay, they've done
They
more
give
harm
you
than
with
good.
one hand and take it
away.
with another hand. So you have to be very careful.
Indeed.
And most of people are not patriotic. And you know that in a system where you have got so many of their cadres in finance, of course, they control everything.
Indeed.
And by the time you realize they have already wiped you clean,
Indeed.
you have a problem as a government, then they come and they just sweep you. And these are some of the things. But I'm very happy with our president. He listens. And his listening skills have helped him. That's why people are complaining. I've stayed for a long time. But that Jaja man is very clever.
I see.
He will sit with you, listen to you, debate with you, give you his side of what he thinks is right. You also give him, and then you come in the middle.
Well, if he's a very good listener, why has this deal taken so long to be finalized, Mr. Asha Wilson-Owere?
No, there were so many forces. The underlying forces were that you may not know, but some of us are warriors. We don't give a damn.
NSSF itself did not want this money to leave its coffers. The Minister of Finance did not want any of this money to leave. Kasaija himself made it clear.
Yes.
Whom else? Where are the other forces coming from?
And there are other forces, which unseen forces, which you may not understand them. But that is now history.
Indeed.
The biggest problem, the biggest problem was that they never wanted this money to be accessed by the workers. And that was going to bring a lot of confusion in the country. And the people had lost confidence in the government, had a lot of confidence in the NSSF. But now NSSF can rebuild itself. You remember, maybe by then you are not yet in the media.
When?
In 2009.
Not yet.
When we started the story.
It's 2011.
Of liberating this fund. It was not easy.
But I was watching you from the sidelines, and I could really tell that you were really clamoring for the creation of one docket that is going to be handling labor issues.
Yes.
You actually were saying it doesn't make any sense to be part of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Socio-Development. You wanted one docket that would go a long way in alleviating the challenges of the people who are the workers. Talk to us about that. Is it feasible?
Yeah, it's feasible because, you know, workers' issue, workers are the engine of development of a country. Today we have underlying problems of lack of jobs. you now see a lot of strikes and so on. What is happening is because lack of good structure for labor in the country. It was distorted in a way that Minister of Gender, as much as is very good, it has, but it has about 5 dockets. They have women, they have culture, and these are very important.
Very important, yes.
Docket. You see, mixing culture, workers, women, youths, children, disabled. Then you have the elderly. Are you seeing?
Indeed.
You see?
I can see you can be overly stretched, and that's why you've had over 600,000 teenage pregnancies, because they are overly stretched. They don't have the resources to handle everything.
Exactly. So you have that docket, and you have clamped them together. Now the structure in there is sophisticated.
I see.
So you have a problem of aligning. Now, workforce, I would even propose, if they are saying there's no money, then make Minister of Public Service and Minister of Labor together and make it one.
I hear you on that one.
I get me. Then you promote social security under it and make sure they follow somebody from the session. Lack of employment today is handled in a one time the youths were handled by Minister of Labor. The other day you see Minister of Finance is also handling. So there's distortion of if that one is corrected.
There's distortion, there is a clear lack of a structure in that regard. But then the issue of the minimum wage, is it also causing distress? Is it one of the reasons as to why we are seeing an explosion in the strikes that we are seeing right now?
No, you know, minimum wage, you cannot bring it with the strike and so on. Minimum wage is...
Because you were telling me some of the
let me describe for you. Minimum wage is the lowest pay, paid for a lowest worker. So all these people who are clamoring now on strike and so on, they are above minimum wage. They are now looking for what we call living wage. There's a difference between minimum wage and living wage.
Can you have a living wage minus a minimum wage?
No. You have to
start with the minimum wage.
You start with the minimum wage.
So there is no structure.
Then you come up with the living wage.
Indeed. So but those are the distortions we're talking about.
In this structure which we had made, especially the negotiation machinery, it took us almost 8 years to make government sign what they call recognition agreement, where they recognize their own workers, and that was something very good. Now, the negotiation machinery, which is negotiating with the government, is very, very weak. It needs strengthening. It needs to be given full powers, and it needs to be respected. Like now, when they have signed a collective bargaining agreement, that's the agreement the government should use to budget for its workers. Not this issue of firefighting where you pick one today, you give them, the other one today, give them. It is encouraging.
One is happy, the other is not.
It is encouraging industrial harmony.
I see.
This harmony. And when there's disharmony, you cause insecurity in the industry.
I see.
And the main purpose of industrial relations is to create industrial peace for productivity.
Well, what else should be done to improve the working conditions of the workers within this country and also uphold their rights? Mr. Asha Wilson-Owere, before I let you go.
First of all, what we have started on now, like what the government has showed the workers today by President ascending to this bill, shows you that now that sector of social security
has been worked
on. Now you need now to work around and see how other issues which are pertaining. I wish now the government can look at collective bargaining agreement for its own workforce, because government has a problem now with its own workforce. They should stop creating division among the workforce, because it will not augur well for them.
Issues of favoritism. I'm raising this one's salary and the other one I'm neglecting them, and so forth.
Exactly. I don't have any problem with the giving scientists money, but give them along the line with what we had structured.
Uniformity.
And say we are now implementing in phases. We are implementing in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 until the 5-year elapse. Then you start something new.
All right, the workers have been watching this show since Asha Wilson already actually took center stage during this segment, and they are waiting for this answer to this one question. When do we receive this money?
In the law, it's actually after signing the bill, the parliament gave these people 2 months. But it can be done.
That is much.
It can even be done before that, because I was talking to the ministry officials yesterday, and I was trying to tell them, look, what we need now, you gazette this. Gazetting takes about 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, by now they should be working on the regulation. And the regulation within 1 month should be ready. So that the next month, the people get money. And that's what is in my mind.
Asha Wilson, already the Chairman General for the National Organization of Trade Unions right here in Uganda. Many thanks for having made the time to shed a light on many of these issues that are so pertinent in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting me, and I want to thank NTV.
Indeed.
In a special way, and all the media houses, because our achievement today was because of you people.
We've made noise, Asha.
Yes.
We've made noise. At some point, even my voice grew hoarse. I was like, really, are they listening? Will they implement? But I'm really happy, as you are happy, all the workers within the country are happy, and we are looking forward for other measures.
And I'm telling you, the amount of messages, by yesterday after that message, every minute I was receiving a call.
Indeed.
It was
again
amazing.
It is a pleasure to be in your midst. Looking forward to our next encounter, Mr. Oweri.
Thank you so much.
And indeed, to you, the viewer who has been watching us since 6:30 a.m. up to now, that undeterred love and support is actually not taken for granted. We thank you very much. At this moment, we are going for a break, but return shortly with more news and information. Keep it here.